The sunscreen bottle made a wet squelching sound as Bryce squeezed it into his palm. I watched from my beach chair, pretending to read my paperback thriller while my wife Alison stretched out on her towel like she was posing for some magazine cover. "Could you get my shoulders too?" she asked him, her voice carrying that breathy tone I hadn't heard directed at me in years. "I'm Eddie Malloy, 39 years old, and I fix computers for a living in the small coastal town of Millfield, New England. Not exactly the kind of guy who commands attention at beach parties, especially not when golden boy Bryce Carter is around, with his perfect tan and his BMW parked where everyone can see it. The July sun beat down on us, but I felt cold watching Bryce's hands work across my wife's back. She made little satisfied sounds, like she was getting a massage at some fancy spa instead of having another man touch her in front of half the town. "Eddie, you're staring," Alison said without turning around. "It's just sunscreen." "Right," I said, closing my book. "Just sunscreen." Bryce grinned at me over her shoulder. The guy sold real estate for a living and had that practiced smile down to an art form. "Hey man, just helping out. Don't want Allie getting burned." Allie. When had he started calling her that? I stood up, brushing sand off my legs. "I'm going back to the hotel." "Already?" Alison finally turned to look at me. "The party just started." Around us, our friends continued their conversations, but I could feel the attention shifting our way. Jenni Morse, Alison's best friend since college, watched us with barely concealed amusement. Her husband Dave pretended to focus on his beer, but his eyes kept darting between us. "Yeah, I've got some work to catch up on," I lied. "On vacation?" Bryce laughed. "Come on, Ed. Live a little." The way he said my name made my hands clench into fists. I'd done amateur boxing in my 20s before I met Alison, and my body still remembered how to fight even if my brain knew better. "I'm good," I said. "You all have fun." I walked away across the sand, hearing Alison's voice behind me. "God, he's so moody lately." More laughter. Jenni's voice. "Maybe he needs some sunscreen too. Looks pretty burned to me." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Back at our hotel room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. My reflection in the black screen showed a guy who looked older than 39, with thinning hair and the soft gut that comes from too many years behind a desk. Not exactly competition for Bryce Carter. I opened my laptop and started typing, an email to my boss explaining I had a family emergency and needed to fly home early, another email to the airline changing my ticket. Then I opened a new document and started writing a letter. "Alison," I began, "by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know about you and Bryce. I've known for weeks." My fingers moved across the keyboard, each word feeling like a small act of rebellion. I told her about the phone calls I'd overheard, the late nights at work, the way she'd started dressing differently. I told her about the credit card statements I'd found, the expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. "You want to play games?" I wrote. "Fine. Let's play." I printed the letter and left it on her pillow. Then I packed my bag and called a cab to the airport. The flight home gave me 3 hours to think, 3 hours to plan, 3 hours to decide that Eddie Malloy, the guy who fixed other people's problems and kept his mouth shut, was done being nice. I changed the locks on our house before Alison even knew I was gone. Cost me $200 to get a locksmith out on a Sunday, but it was worth it when my phone started buzzing with her frantic calls around midnight. "Eddie? What the hell? I can't get in the house." "That's because you don't live here anymore," I said, sitting in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and my laptop open. "You can't just lock me out of my own house." "Our house. And actually I can. Check the deed, counselor. It's in my name only. Wedding gift from my parents, remember?" Silence on the other end. Alison was a lawyer, Worked for a small firm in town handling real estate and family cases. She knew I was right. This is insane, Eddie. It was just sunscreen. Right. And those dinners at Romano's were just business meetings. And that weekend conference in Boston was really about continuing education. More silence. Where are the girls? She asked finally. Maya and Emily are with your mother for the week, just like we planned. They don't need to see this mess. I hung up and went back to work. I'd spent my career learning how people's digital lives connected to their real ones. Amazing what you could find when you knew where to look. Alison had been sloppy. Her laptop was still logged into our home network, which meant I could see everything. Emails, texts, photos. 3 months of evidence that my wife had been planning to leave me for Bryce Carter. But here's what she didn't know about Bryce. The golden boy was broke. His real estate business was failing, he owed money all over town, and he'd been using his relationship with my wife to try to get inside information on property deals from her firm. I started making phone calls. Hey, Mrs. Harris? It's Eddie Malloy from down the street. Yeah, I'm fine. Listen, I thought you should know what I saw at the beach party yesterday. Mrs. Harris was 73 and had lived in Millfield her entire life. She knew everyone, and more importantly, everyone knew she couldn't keep a secret to save her life. By Tuesday morning, half the town was talking about Alison and Bryce. By Tuesday afternoon, Alison was calling me again. You bastard, she said. People are staring at me everywhere I go. Funny how that works, I said. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to put on a show at the beach. I want to come home. We need to talk. No, we don't. You made your choice. Now live with it. I was getting ready to hang up when she said something that made me pause. Eddie, please. Bryce this isn't what I thought it was. What do you mean? I found out some things. About him. About money he owes. He's been using me. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Welcome to the club, I said, and hung up. That evening I drove to Murphy's gym, where my old friend Mick still trained fighters. I hadn't been there in years, but my hands remembered the feel of the heavy bag. Heard you're having some trouble at home, Mick said, watching me work. Nothing I can't handle. That's what I'm worried about. You always were too smart for your own good. I stopped punching and looked at him. What's that supposed to mean? Means be careful, Eddie. This town's small. People talk, and sometimes they do more than talk. I thought about that on the drive home. Mick was right about one thing. This town was small, which meant everyone would be watching to see what happened next. Good, let them watch. Wednesday morning brought the first real surprise. Jenni Morse showed up at my door with coffee, and what she probably thought was a sympathetic smile. Eddie, I'm so sorry about all this, she said, settling into my kitchen like she belonged there. I had no idea what Alison was doing. I studied her face. Jenni had always been attractive in that sharp, predatory way that some women cultivate. She ran a hair salon downtown and knew everyone's business before they did. Really? Her best friend had no idea? I swear. I mean, I knew she was unhappy, but I never thought she'd actually cheat on me with the town pretty boy. Jenni flinched. It's not like that. Bryce, he's not what people think he is. What do you mean? She leaned forward, lowering her voice like we were conspirators. He owes money, serious money, to some very unpleasant people. How do you know that? Because he tried to borrow from me. Said he needed $50,000 to cover some bad investments. When I said no, he got aggressive. I filed that information away. Why are you telling me this? Because I care about you, Eddie. I always have. The way she said it made me look at her more carefully. There was something in her eyes, something hungry. Jenni, what aren't you telling me? She stood up abruptly. Nothing, I think you deserve better than what Alison did to you. After she left, I sat in my kitchen thinking. Jenni Morse had never shown any interest in me during the 15 years I'd been married to her best friend. So why now? I decided to find out. That afternoon, I drove to Carter Real Estate. Bryce's office was in a strip mall between a nail salon and a pizza place. Not exactly the high-end operation his BMW suggested. "Eddie!" He stood up when I walked in, all fake enthusiasm. "Hey man, look, about the beach thing." "Relax," I said. "I'm not here to fight. I'm here to talk business." "Business? I hear you're looking for investors." His face changed, became more guarded. "Where'd you hear that?" "Small town. People talk. I've got some money saved up, thought maybe we could work something out." For the next hour, I let Bryce pitch me on his various schemes. Real estate flips, commercial developments, a restaurant venture that would revolutionize Millfield's dining scene. All of it desperate, all of it doomed. "The thing is," he said finally, "I need capital fast. There are some time-sensitive opportunities, you know." "How fast?" 30 days, maybe less." I nodded sympathetically. "That's tough. What happens if you can't raise the money?" His face went pale. "Let's just say I've got some very motivated partners." I left his office with everything I needed to know. Bryce Carter was scared, desperate, and running out of time, which meant he was about to make some very bad decisions. I didn't have to wait long. Thursday evening, my phone rang. It was Alison, crying. "Eddie, something happened. Someone broke into Bryce's car, trashed his apartment. He thinks it's connected to some business deal gone wrong." "That's terrible," I said, not meaning it. "He's scared, Eddie, really scared, and I don't know what to do. Maybe you should come home." "You said I couldn't. I changed my mind. We should talk." She was at my door within an hour, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her perfect lawyer facade was cracking, showing the frightened woman underneath. "Eddie, I made a mistake. A huge mistake. With Bryce? With everything. The affair, the lies, the way I treated you. I was stupid and selfish, and I'm sorry." I poured her a glass of wine and sat across from her at our kitchen table. "Tell me about Bryce's money problems." "How did you—" "Small town, remember? People talk." She took a shaky sip of wine. "He owes money to some loan shark from Boston, a lot of money. He borrowed it to invest in some real estate deal that fell through." "How much?" $200,000. I whistled. "That's serious money." "Eddie, I think he was using me, getting information about property deals from my firm, using my connections to try to drum up business. I was so stupid." "What about Jenni? She know about any of this?" Alison's face went strange. "Why would you ask about Jenni?" "She came by yesterday, seemed to know a lot about Bryce's situation." "She did?" "Yeah, in fact, she seemed to know more than a casual observer should." Alison stared into her wine glass. "Eddie, there's something else. Something I found out today." "What?" "Jenni and Bryce, they were together before he and I started our thing." The pieces clicked into place in my mind like tumblers in a lock. "How long before?" "Months. Maybe longer. I think she might have set this whole thing up." I leaned back in my chair, seeing the pattern now. Jenni, pushing Alison toward Bryce. Jenni, always asking questions about our marriage, our problems. Jenni, showing up at my door with information about Bryce's debts. Why would she do that? Alison's voice was barely a whisper. "Because she wanted you." Friday night was the annual Millfield Community Foundation Charity Gala, held at the old seaside hotel overlooking the harbor. Alison and I had attended for the past 5 years, back when we were still playing the part of the happy couple. This year, I went alone. The hotel ballroom was full of familiar faces. Doctors, lawyers, business owners, all the people who kept our little town running. I spotted Bryce across the room, looking nervous in an ill-fitting tuxedo. Jenni was there too, stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. "Eddie," Dr. Peterson, our family physician, clapped me on the shoulder. Good to see you out and about. How are you holding up? Fine, Doc, just fine. That's the spirit. You know what they say about the best revenge. I smiled. Living well? Exactly. But I had something better than living well in mind. I'd spent the week preparing for tonight. Phone calls to old contacts, favors called in, information gathered. Amazing what people would tell you when they thought you were the wronged party. At 8 o'clock, the Foundation president took the stage to begin the evening's program. I waited until he finished his opening remarks. Then I stood up. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for the room to hear. "I'd like to say something." The president looked confused but handed me the microphone. 300 pairs of eyes turned toward me. "Most of you know me as Eddie Malloy. I fix your computers, I keep your networks running, I solve your technical problems. But tonight, I want to talk about a different kind of problem." I could see Alison near the back of the room, her face white with shock. Bryce was trying to edge toward the exit, but the crowd blocked his path. "See, I've learned some interesting things this week. About trust, about loyalty, about what happens when people think they're smarter than everyone else." I pressed a button on my phone, and the hotel's projection screen lit up behind me. The first image was a bank statement showing Bryce's account balance. Negative $12,000. Bryce Carter there has been telling people he's a successful businessman. But the truth is, he's broke. Worse than broke. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Bryce's face had gone from pale to green. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is how he's been trying to solve his money problems. The next slide showed email exchanges between Bryce and several local business owners, promising inside information on upcoming real estate deals in exchange for investment money. Information he got from his relationship with my wife, who works at Henderson and Associates law firm. Now, the crowd was fully engaged, leaning forward in their seats. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. But here's where it gets really interesting. The final slide was a series of text messages between Jenni and Bryce, planning how to manipulate Alison into the affair, how to use her access to legal documents, how to eventually frame her for the insider trading they were planning. The room erupted. Jenni was pushing through the crowd toward the exit, but several people blocked her path, demanding explanations. Bryce had given up trying to leave and was just standing there, looking like he wanted to disappear. "The best part," I said into the microphone, "is that they thought I was too stupid to figure it out. They thought I'd just sit there and take it, like a good little computer geek." I handed the microphone back to the stunned Foundation president and walked off the stage. As I headed for the door, I passed Jenni. "You should have left me alone," I said quietly. Her eyes were full of rage and something else. Fear. "This isn't over, Eddie." "Yes, it is." Outside, the October air was crisp and clean. I could hear the commotion continuing inside the hotel, voices raised in anger and shock. My phone was already buzzing with calls and texts, but I ignored them. I drove home through the quiet streets of Millfield, past the houses where my neighbors were probably already hearing about what had happened at the gala. By morning, everyone in town would know the whole story, but I wasn't done yet. Saturday morning brought a knock at my door. I opened it to find Sergeant Dugan from the Millfield Police Department, a guy I'd known since high school. "Eddie, we need to talk." "About what, Tom?" "About what happened at the gala last night. Jenni Morse filed a complaint. Says you stole private documents, invaded her privacy." I invited him in and poured coffee. "What kind of complaint?" "Harassment, invasion of privacy, possibly theft if she can prove you hacked into her accounts." "Did she mention that she and Bryce Carter were planning to commit securities fraud using stolen information from my wife's law firm?" Tom sighed. "Eddie, I've known you for 20 years. You're a good guy. But this thing with your wife, it's got you acting crazy." "Crazy?" "Tom, they tried to destroy my marriage so they could steal information and make money on illegal real estate deals. How is exposing that crazy? Because you're not a cop, Eddie. You're not a lawyer. You can't just take the law into your own hands. I showed him the documents I'd prepared, copies of everything I'd presented at the gala. Bank records, email exchanges, text messages, all of it obtained legally through public records requests, social media searches, and information freely given by people who trusted me. I didn't hack anything, Tom. I didn't steal anything. I just connected dots that were already there. He studied the papers for a long time. This is pretty damning stuff. It gets worse. I think Jenni's been planning this for years. What do you mean? I pulled out another file. Remember when I had to let someone go from my old IT consulting business? About 3 years ago? Vaguely. It was Jenni. She was embezzling money from client accounts. I caught her, fired her, but I didn't press charges because Alison begged me not to, said it would ruin Jenni's life. Tom's expression sharpened. You think this is payback? I think she's been working on this revenge plan ever since, getting close to Alison, learning about our marriage problems, introducing her to Bryce, all of it designed to destroy my life while making herself rich in the process. That's a hell of an accusation, Eddie. It's also the truth. After Tom left, I sat in my kitchen thinking about the past 3 years, all the times Jenni had come over for dinner, asking innocent questions about my work, about Alison's cases, about our finances. All the times she'd made little comments about how Alison deserved better, how successful men appreciated their wives more. She'd played the long game, and she'd almost won. My phone rang. It was Maya, my 14-year-old daughter. Dad? Grandma says Mom's been crying all morning. What's going on? Your mother and I are having some problems, sweetheart, but it's not your fault, and it's going to be okay. Are you getting divorced? I closed my eyes. I don't know yet. Dad, I heard some kids at school talking about stuff on social media. About Mom and some guy named Bryce. Maya, I'm not a little kid, Dad. I know what cheating means. My heart broke a little. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Are you okay? I'm going to be fine. I promise. After I hung up, I made a decision. This had gone far enough. Whatever happened between Alison and me, our daughters didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of it. But Jenni Morse wasn't getting away with what she'd done. I spent the rest of Saturday gathering the final pieces of evidence I needed. Bank records showing how Jenni had been funneling money from her salon into offshore accounts. Real estate transactions where she'd used information from Alison's firm to buy properties just before major developments were announced. A pattern of fraud going back 3 years. Sunday morning, I drove to her house. Jenni lived in a restored Victorian on Elm Street, the kind of place that cost serious money to maintain. Too much money for a small-town salon owner to afford legitimately. She answered the door in a silk robe, looking like she hadn't slept. What do you want, Eddie? To make you a deal. She let me in, probably curious about what I had to say. Her living room was expensively furnished, all antiques and original art. More evidence of income that didn't match her declared earnings. Nice place, I said. Must have cost a fortune to restore. I've done well for myself. By stealing from my wife's clients? Her face hardened. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out a folder and spread documents across her coffee table. Jenni, I know everything. The embezzlement, the insider trading, the way you manipulated Alison into the affair with Bryce. All of it. She glanced at the papers, and I saw recognition in her eyes. Here's my deal, I continued. You confess everything to the police. You make restitution to the people you've stolen from, and you disappear from Millfield forever. And if I don't? Then I turn all of this over to the FBI. Financial fraud across state lines is a federal crime, Jenni. You're looking at serious prison time. She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. You know what your problem is, Eddie? You're too nice. You always were. Even now you're giving me a way out instead of just destroying me. Maybe. But I'm also tired of playing games. What about Alison? What about your marriage? That's between me and her. This is between me and you. Jenni walked to her window and stared out at the street. I really did hate you, you know. For firing me, for ruining my reputation, for being so self-righteous about it. You were stealing from people who trusted you. And you were too good to give me a second chance. I gave you several chances. You kept stealing. She turned back to me. So this is it? I confess and disappear, or I go to prison. Those are your options. What about option 3? There is no option 3. She smiled, and for a moment, I saw the predator that had been hiding behind the small-town salon owner facade. We'll see about that. Monday evening, I got a call from Alison. Eddie, something's wrong. Jenni called and wants to meet with both of us. She says she has something important to tell us about Bryce. Where? The old cabin at Miller's Lake. You know, where we used to go when we were dating. I knew the place. Isolated, surrounded by woods, no cell phone service. Perfect for a private conversation. Or something worse. Alison, I don't think... She sounded scared, Eddie. Really scared. She said Bryce threatened her, that he's desperate enough to do something stupid. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet them there at 8 o'clock. But first, I made a phone call to Tom Dugan. Tom, I need a favor. Can you meet me at Miller's Lake around 8:30? I think something's going to happen. What kind of something? The kind that might require a police officer. The cabin sat on the shore of a small lake about 10 miles outside town. I'd bought it years ago as a weekend retreat, back when Alison and I still enjoyed spending time together. Now it just sat empty, a reminder of better times. I arrived first and waited in my car, watching the access road. Alison's Honda appeared at 8 sharp, followed by Jenni's BMW. But there was a third car behind them, a black SUV I didn't recognize. They parked near the cabin, and I could see them talking through the windshields. Then all the car doors opened at once. Bryce Carter got out of the SUV, and he wasn't alone. 2 other men emerged, both wearing dark clothes and serious expressions. The kind of men who collected debts for a living. I understood immediately. Jenni hadn't called this meeting to confess or apologize. She'd called it to eliminate the problem I represented. I got out of my car and walked toward them, keeping my hands visible and my voice calm. Ladies, gentlemen, nice evening for a meeting. Eddie, Alison said, I think we should go. Something's not right here. She's right, I said. This whole thing stinks. One of Bryce's companions stepped forward. Mr. Malloy, you've been causing problems for our business associate. We're here to discuss a solution. What kind of solution? The kind where you forget everything you think you know about Mr. Carter and Ms. Morse's business arrangements. I looked at Jenni. This is your plan? Intimidation? You didn't give me much choice, she said. You want to play hardball, Eddie? Fine. Let's play. Jenni, what's going on? Alison looked confused and frightened. You said Bryce was threatening you. I lied. Bryce and I are partners. We have been from the beginning. Partners in what? In taking everything your husband worked for and making it ours. The pieces fell into place for Alison the same way they had for me. The affair. You set it up. I suggested it. Bryce was happy to go along. But why? Jenni's mask finally came off completely. Because your husband destroyed my life 3 years ago. Because he cost me my business, my reputation, my future. Because I wanted him to know how it felt to lose everything. You were stealing from people, I said. I was trying to survive. You had everything handed to you. The successful business, the perfect wife, the nice house. And you couldn't even give me a chance to make things right. I gave you multiple chances. You kept stealing. So I decided to take what I wanted instead. The debt collector was getting impatient. This is touching, but we have business to discuss. Mr. Malloy, you're going to sign some papers transferring ownership of certain assets to Mr. Carter. Think of it as compensation for the damage you've caused to his reputation. What assets? This cabin, for starters. Your house in town, your business equipment, whatever it takes to make Mr. Carter's problems go away. I almost laughed. You think I'm going to sign over my property because you brought some muscle to intimidate me? I think you're going to sign because the alternative is much worse for everyone involved. That's when I heard the car engine coming up the access road. Tom Dugan's police cruiser appeared through the trees, lights flashing. Jenni's face went white. You called the police? I called a friend. Big difference. The debt collectors were already moving toward their SUV, clearly not interested in explaining their presence to law enforcement. Bryce started to follow them, but Tom's voice stopped him. Nobody leaves until we sort this out. For the next hour, the whole story came out. Jenni's embezzlement scheme, the insider trading, the manipulation of my marriage, the plan to extort my property. Tom recorded everything, and by the time we were done, he had enough evidence to put both Jenni and Bryce away for a long time. The debt collectors were gone, disappeared into the night as soon as they saw the police car. Bryce was in handcuffs, crying about how he never meant for things to go this far, and Jenni was staring at me with pure hatred. You think you won? She said as Tom led her to his cruiser. You think this fixes your marriage? Your wife still cheated on you, Eddie. She still chose him over you. I looked at Alison, who was sitting on the cabin steps with her head in her hands. Maybe, I said, but at least now I know why. After Tom left with his prisoners, Alison and I sat by the lake in the darkness, listening to the water lap against the shore. I'm sorry, she said finally, for all of it. The affair, the lies, not seeing what Jenni was doing. She played us both. No, Eddie, she played me. You figured it out. Eventually. What happens now? I thought about that. My wife had cheated on me, lied to me, nearly cost me everything I'd worked for. But she'd also been manipulated by someone who wanted to destroy our lives. I don't know, I said honestly. I really don't know. Do you think we can fix this? I looked at her in the moonlight, this woman I'd loved for 15 years, this stranger who'd betrayed me, this victim who'd been used as a weapon against me. I don't know that either. Eddie? Yeah? Thank you. For saving me from them, even after everything I did. I stood up and walked to the edge of the lake. The water was black and still, reflecting the stars like scattered diamonds. You're welcome, I said. Behind me, I heard her car door close and her engine start. She drove away, leaving me alone with the night and the silence and the wreckage of everything we'd built together. I stayed there until dawn, watching the sun rise over the water, thinking about revenge and justice and the difference between the two, thinking about marriage and trust and whether some things, once broken, could ever really be fixed. When I finally drove home, Millfield was waking up to a new day. The scandal would be the talk of the town for months. Jenni and Bryce would go to prison. The people they'd stolen from would get their money back, and I would go back to fixing computers, solving other people's problems, keeping the networks running. But I would never again be the man who sat quietly and took whatever life handed him. That man was gone forever, left behind on a beach in July with a bottle of sunscreen and the last of my illusions. Some revenge burns hot and fast, some burns slow and steady, and some burns everything to the ground, leaving nothing but scorched earth and the bitter satisfaction of watching your enemy's world collapse around them. I chose the latter, and I'd do it again.